Yay, we made it to Wednesday! And another episode of My Wednesday Comics. So I technically didn't make it to the store today for various reasons, but the first book that I wanted to bring up today and show you guys came out about a month ago. And it's worth talking about because it's by one of my all-time favorite current artists in mainstream comic books today. His name is Rafael Grampá, which is the coolest name. And the book is Batman, Gargoyle of Gotham. This is issue 1. They also came out with a Noir edition, which is a black and white version. And I think it did so well that they're doing it for all the books. I think there's 4 total. So very excited to show you guys that. I did go to a comic book store this weekend, a really fantastic store in the East Bay called Escapist Comics. I'll put a link in the description. And I picked up this bad boy, which is GIJoe Silent Interlude, the 30th anniversary version. And it's written and drawn by Larry Hama and Steve Leialoha. And then finally, yesterday came in the mail a book that I backed on Kickstarter, which is an incredible production, a 40-year retrospective of the great Arthur Adams. This is produced by Flesk Publications, and it's a fantastic book. So super excited to flip through this with you guys. So let's get to it. The first book is Rafael Grampá's Batman, Gargoyle of Gotham. So he is the writer and also the artist of this book, and then his colorist is Matheus Lopes. Actually, the first time I was exposed to Grampá's work was an independent book he had produced called Mesmo Delivery. Just flipping through it really quick, it's a pretty weird, bizarre story, almost like a fable, but that takes place at like a truck stop, super violent and brutal. When he came out with this book, a lot of people took notice. There's a cartooniness to his designs, yet meticulous sense of detail. But there's something about Rafael's combo of cartooniness and violence and detail that really make him stand out. So after this book, I saw him do a bunch of other pinups and maybe one-shot images, cover images like X-Men and Spider-Man and Daredevil. And then he came out with this book. Oh, he actually also did a short story in the Batman Black and White, one of the volumes of the Black and White editions. That was the first time that I saw him do Batman. And that was like, whoa, okay, this guy is amazing. He did a story with Batman and Joker. And both of his designs for those characters were incredible. So it didn't surprise me that the next major project that he worked on was a one-shot book with Frank Miller in the Dark Knight Returns kind of world. It was called Golden Child. This was Grampá's versions of Frank Miller's characters and his writing, but we also saw him do his own version of Batman. In this case, a female version of Batman. But again, as you can see, like his sense of detail and rendering over this kind of cartooniness really just makes his style very, very different from comic artists out there. And he's just dang good. So when I heard that he was doing his own limited series, I was ecstatic. And all the promo art for this book was amazing. And so I knew that I had to get this book. And it sold out really quickly. So he writes this himself. It flowed really nicely. Again, the strength of his visuals and his designs just make this book incredible. This image in particular is unbelievable. And a lot of it actually has to do with the colorist. I've never seen this colorist's work before, but he matches or pairs up with Grampá incredibly well. Like the mood in this one image is amazing. And you'll see when I show you the Noir edition, I mean, this is an amazing image in its own right and in black and white, but with this color, it just is just stunning. So yeah, the colors in this whole book just have a super amazing feel. Like they're simple but complicated, subtle and bold. And then Grampá creates this new character. His name is Cry-Toon, which was kind of a weird name for me when I first read it, but when you read the book, you understand where it comes from. He's actually kind of based off of this animated, like Fleischer style character. But look how amazing that design is. That is just crazy good. The kind of brushwork that Grampá's using in this is something that he, I think, pushed to another level. I definitely seen him use like dry brush kind of techniques in his other works, but he really uses it well here. I don't know if he's actually using a dry brush or if it's digital effects, but they just give a nice sense of dimension and form and just texture. Again, that texture. Like his lines are really strong and bold, but then the texture that he adds in there is super nice. Like, look how subtle those colors are in these scenes. Like, that design is so killer. His costuming feels like actual pieces of costume that work. It's not just a graphic form or a stylization of something. It feels like leather and cloth, and you can feel the buckles and the folds and like the ribbing in the neck and like how the suit is all put together. I would love to know what influences Grampá has had as an artist. So then look at his, like you always wonder when somebody does Batman, like, okay, that's a cool Batman, but how would you draw the Batmobile? Like, look at that Batmobile. It's really good. So again, he's that's very brutal, violent. It's a very, very dark Batman story. Wow, look at that. It's just flying off the page. He is so good. Love that, like, foreshortening and the perspective on those cables. Man. So this was the color version. And then this is the Noir edition, which again is a black and white version. So this is great because you can see his line work. You can see the brush work that came from Grampá himself, how he's already working out lighting, like this kind of backlighting is bleeding into the edges. It's really effective with that brush technique that he uses. It's kind of cool to see like how much color is important in certain aspects. Okay, here's that image here. And then this is what it looks like in black and white. So it's a great image, right? Like you can see you can feel the lighting and kind of the black and white, negative space, the silhouette, very subtle lighting on the edge. But just look at like the mood of that. I love that image a lot. But you can really see that brush technique that I was talking about just now. Like you can really see it in this black and white version. This is killer Batman right there. I love how Batman his blacks just like stand out. Boom. Wow, look at this. Like I was talking about how he constructs costuming. It's so awesome to see it. Like the back of his neck. There's Cry-Toon again. Let's look at the color version with that. Yeah, I guess they kept it pretty black and white. You can just see like how he spots his blacks. Not so obvious in the color versions. right? But here you can see like how that leads here. Blacks carry across here. You go immediately to this guy here, and then this couch, this black couch here, leads you to the scene and the dead guy on the floor. When you look at the color version, maybe it kind of leads your eye a little bit in similar ways, but it's more about the color and the mood, and like I kind of skip over Gordon here. Whoops, sorry. Kind of skip over him here in the black and white version, but in the color version, your eye goes right here because of that light background. So it's kind of neat to see. This is one of the few instances where I feel like the color and the black and white stand equal as far as impact. I love either one equally. That Batman on this page is ridiculous. Look at Batman there. Like his shadow here is a lot more apparent in the black and white version. See, like the shadow in the building, like you see it, but definitely you see it in the black and whites. It's cool. It's really cool just to compare. So I'm very happy that they are doing a black and white or noir edition for all of the issues, if I'm not mistaken. I quickly let my comic book store know, hey, make sure you pull both versions. I want one of the color and one of the black and white. And then knowing them, they're going to release graphic novels of both versions, and I'm going to have to get those too. So anyway, that's how it goes. But very, very cool. Highly, highly recommend. The next book is GIJoe Silent Interlude. This is the 30th anniversary edition. Actually, I think they've come out with a 40th anniversary edition already. That's how old it is. But this is GIJoe is, I feel like, is really what Larry Hama is known for, his writing on GIJoe. He also was, I think, a co-creator of Bucky O'Hare, and he worked on, or was the editor on the Nam with Michael Golden. This is so burned in my brain because of the fact that, as it's called, Silent Interlude, but it was a comic, I think it was the first comic that I saw at least, that had no words, which was such a cool thing to pull off. And it's even more perfect because it is Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. Like, you can't get any better than that. And I remember seeing this as a kid and just being totally like mesmerized by the images. Partially because I'm not reading anything, right? You don't have to read anything and you're just trying to figure out the story from the images. It was so clear. And it also had to do with the characters that were being introduced here were iconic. I remember later on in life that I didn't realize that Larry Hama was also the artist on this. I just always always remembered him as a writer and an editor. So it's just cool to see that he was the actual artist on this too. And Steve Leialoha was doing the finishes, the inks over his breakdowns. But he's great. It's great art, great images, the poses, just fun stuff. Like these characters, Destro and Cobra Commander, and even the Cobra soldiers, just really, really iconic. It's neat just to kind of follow the story, and it teaches you a lot about visual storytelling versus with dialogue, and what you can and can't do in visual storytelling when you don't have words, and what you have to spell out in images when you don't have words to help you out. This is awesome. This feels like an Indiana Jones moment where maybe it was inspired by Indiana Jones, but this guy pulls out his sais and kind of does his ninja thing, and then Snake Eyes is like, eat grenade, dude. Booyah. And then here's the epic battle. Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. Catches the sword and takes off. Then they give us a section here that's the breakdowns. This is awesome, seeing the pencils, his sketches here, and just being able to compare them to the inked versions. You just get a sense of how an inker can really make or break a penciler's work. I'd say that Larry Hama's pretty loose with his pencils, but it's all there. I mean, it's all structurally there, stylistically there. But Leialoha definitely adds some embellishments to it. But they work really well together. It's really cool that they were able to include the whole story here. And they had copies of all the pencils. Yeah, see that? It's great. And they give some backstory here. Anyway, super cool. 30th anniversary edition of GIJoe Silent Interlude, Blast from the Past. And finally, we got this big boy. The art of Arthur Adams. Say that 5 times in a row. Arthur Adams, for those of you who don't know, is one of the most amazing comic book artists. He has worked on X-Men and Fantastic Four and Wolverine, and he's done covers for just about every book out there. He has such a solid style. He has influenced so many comic book artists today just with his work. He has a love for kaiju and movie monsters. This is one of the most classic Wolverine running at you images, and he's done a bunch of them, but this one is one of the best. And so yeah, they put together this retrospective of his work, and he's had many sketchbooks come out before and art of books before, but this one was really impressive. And I think because it looks like Arthur Adams had a lot of input and an involvement in this. These are some of his tryout pages for Marvel. They're already really good. One of the things I was reading in the bio, he was saying how he was really influenced by Michael Golden, and you can see that in his earlier work. But I'd argue that Arthur Adams took it to another level, his own level, and made it his own style. And then, subsequently influenced a whole bunch of other artists like J. Scott Campbell and Humberto Ramos and just tons of other artists after him, still influencing them. He really came out of the gates with his Longshot miniseries that he worked with Ann Nocenti. There's Longshot, his designs right there. It was a really great, and for those of you who don't know, Longshot was a character in the X-Men. He's an alien guy. He has the power of luck. He's definitely very 80s, but it was cool. This was from Longshot. Look at that. These are like classic Arthur Adams images. He always makes every character that he draws, from whatever it is, he just makes them look cool. His stuff is just oozing appeal. He did a lot of Asgardian Wars stories. This is from the Gumby special. Here's DC characters. I'd say he illustrated more Marvel stuff than he did DC. He did this series of covers for Appleseed, which is a Japanese manga by Masumine Shiro. Here's the Asgardian War stuff. But every time I saw Art Adams draw any character, I just loved it. His renditions were just great. Here's Fantastic Four. Look at that Spider-Man. Somebody who was influenced a lot by Art Adams as well was Todd McFarlane. Another great artist in his own right. So the one thing that Art Adams does is I think he inks a lot with technical pens. So his detail lines are really, really thin, but he builds them up and adds a lot of texture and cross-hatching with these super thin lines. There's his love for movie monsters, the creature of the Black Lagoon. See, there's like Star Wars, and he drew it in a very Art Adams way, but it just looks so cool. And then he created his own characters for Legend, an imprint under Dark Horse with, that's where Frank Miller did Sin City and Mike Mignola did Hellboy. So he did his own series called Monkey Man and O'Brien, and I loved it. One of the things Art Adams loves to draw is gorillas, monkeys. So I'm sure that influenced, and he loves to draw beautiful women. And so put those two together and you get Monkey Man and O'Brien. I wish he would just keep writing those. I mean, he has even said himself that he's slow, but you can see why, because of the amount of art that he draws, or how he draws it. The rendering in it is just off the charts. This is an Humberto Ramos character. So it's like Humberto Ramos is influenced by Art Adams, and Art Adams went and did a cover for Humberto Ramos, and I'd argue drew his characters even better than Humberto Ramos did. Here's some DC work. Like he drew the Thundercats, and he did it in his Art Adams style, and it just looks awesome. It's a very classic Art Adams foot. Like I'd mentioned before, he knows that he's slow, but I think it works for him. He rarely draws a regular book, but he does a lot of covers, a lot of one-shots, and he must make a ton of money doing that, because anything with his cover on it will sell. Oh yeah, and then he even did a few annuals back in the 90s of the X-Men, but they were younger versions of themselves, so they were called the X-Babies. I think it was because of Mojo. This character Mojo like turned them into little babies, but he kind of became famous for doing that. So it's cool here to see him drawing the image and the final image. His sense of lighting, he'll render it with his cross-hatching, and it's really dramatic and awesome. Like, look how complicated this image is, but it's really clear. Really clear. But the rendering is unbelievable. Then they have this fold-out image, which the colors on this are actually really nice. And I think he mentioned something like he loves to draw women, he loves to draw monsters, and he loves to draw gorillas, and he put it all in this one image just for this book. There's the black and whites. So yeah, this was just came out. I think after it fulfilled, they just started shipping, and so mine came the other day, and it's worth it, really worth it. Beautifully put together, stunning images. It's a nice size. Regular comic book size is that big. So it's a nice size to see artwork up close, especially the amount of detail that goes into an Arthur Adams drawing. Thank you so much for joining me again. For those of you who are new, definitely recommend watching the earlier episodes, what I like to deem the sleepier ones. Like, subscribe, share, comment. I really appreciate it. Next week, I actually won't be in my usual spot, but hopefully I will post a video from where I am, and it could be really cool in regards to comics. So I hope I can do it. If I can't, I'll definitely retroactively post a video of where I am. But yeah, I'm super excited to share that with you guys. Stay tuned. It'll be something cool. And I will see you guys I'll see you guys when I see you. Thanks again.